Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, June the 12th, 2023. This Saturday on the 17th is a new moon. The week prior to the new moon is a time of bringing closure to the last new moon cycle, wrapping things up. Sometimes it can feel like everything's been finished and now you're in a holding pattern. What's next? It's not overall favorable to be launching new projects because the cycle is wrapping up this week, not revving up, which is next week. But let's start with Monday, the 12th. The moon is in an initiative, fiery, courageous Aries. A great sign to start the new work week. That Aries just gives a lot of motivation and drive. And around 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific time, the moon in fiery Aries will be in harmony with Mars, the warrior planet. Mars is associated with Aries. So this is a very comfortable combination that's triggering first thing on Monday, a lot of ambitious high energies. Now, Tuesday, the moon continues in fiery independent Aries, but around 11:31 a.m. Pacific time, the moon enters into Taurus. Now, when the moon represents the emotional response of the public, Aries is very fiery, very restless, wanting to do things. When it goes into Taurus, we want to just calm down. We want to rest. Taurus is very steady, routine-oriented energies. Now, we're just before the moon enters into Taurus, when it's at the last minutes of Aries, it's going to be in a challenging aspect to Pluto. So that's around 11 a.m. Pacific time. That could trigger some real emotional power struggles or internal conflict. But then as soon as the moon goes into Taurus, 11:31 a.m., you start to calm down. On Wednesday, the moon in Taurus, steady, loyal, sometimes persistent Taurus, will be in a hard angle to ambitious Mars around mid-afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. That moon Mars could trigger a lot of drive and activity, but because of the tension, it could trigger some emotional stress, irritability. This would actually be a good couple of hours to not engage with others, but go channel this energy through exercise, even if just, saying, I need to take a break, I need to walk around the block. On Thursday, the moon, continuing in steady Taurus, is going into Gemini, which is very different energies, but not till later in the day, not till 6:45 p.m. Pacific time. Remember, moon in Taurus, the public reaction, slower, steady, calming. When the moon goes into Gemini once a month for 2.5 days, Gemini is restless. It's curious. It needs a lot of mental variety and stimulation. But Mercury, the planet that is associated with Gemini, Mercury is that planet of communications and expectations. Mercury will be in a stressful angle called a square to restricted, cautious Saturn. So Mercury to Saturn, and we're still right at the very end of the of this week before the next new moon cycle begins on Saturday, when we can start moving forwards with new plans and new goals. So this Thursday, with your Mercury at a difficult angle to Saturn, you might be really worried. But I think with the wrapping up of the new moon cycle, this could be about letting go, saying goodbye, and that could be, some of you may be deciding to quit your job. That would, or when it comes to having meetings and discussions in business or friendships and loved ones, that Mercury-Saturn can really restrict communications, make it a little bit more negative, worrisome, making communications more blocked. On Friday, the 16th, the moon in restless Gemini is going to cross over the Mercury that rules Gemini around noon to 2 p.m. Pacific time. That can be very favorable for writing, for speaking, reflecting on your past. It's when you could be really analyzing, thinking about what is on your mind, good for counseling. Later in the afternoon, maybe 2-3 p.m. Pacific time, now the moon is going to be in harmony with harmonious relational Venus. That's a very favorable time as we're going into the weekend with connecting with friends and loved ones, attending entertainment venues. That's Venus. Socializing, and with the moon, that moon is that really strong need to enjoy life and connect with loved ones. Saturday, the 17th, is the new moon. The new moon, this one's in Gemini. It sets the stage for the next 4 weeks. This new moon, however, will be in a stressful angle to Neptune. Neptune is this nebulous kind of foggy energies. It can be inspiring when it's positively aspected, but this new moon is in a stressful angle to Neptune. So that could indicate, certainly over the next couple of weeks, some real being unfocused, being confused, how you want to channel this to get more constructive energy out of it is look to the positive of Neptune. Neptune is inspiring, it's charitable, it's spiritual, helping those in need. But also Neptune can be very musical and highly creative. So instead of being lost in la la land, why don't you create fantasy? Because also on Saturday, discerning communication Mercury will be in harmony with creative Venus. So this could be a very favorable day going into the weekend to start new creative projects or to make plans to go to entertainment venues. But Venus is relationships. And that Mercury is wanting to make these connections. So it's a really favorable time, especially going into Saturday evening, to enjoy your loved ones, to attend a party. And with the new moon with Neptune, maybe on the positive, you're being swept away by the magic and fantasy of creativity, like film, like theater, like dance. On Sunday, the 18th, the moon is now in Cancer. Gemini, when the moon was in Cancer, our mind is going all over the place. We're restless, we're curious. But when the moon goes into Cancer, Cancer is more reflective, it's more the home, it's more about feeling much more comfortable, of just wanting to stay closer with family. And that moon by around 7 p.m. Pacific time, will be in harmony with expansive Jupiter and grounding Saturn. So it's a really good period for feeling really grounded and confident, which will be needed because the new moon was in a hard angle to Neptune, and the sun is still in, the moon's moved on, because it moves about 12, 15 degrees a day. But the sun is still impacting Neptune. And that could be where you're confused, you're out of focus. Remember, you can direct the energy towards Neptunian pursuits: music, the arts, charity, compassion. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.